You know what gets me every single year? You step outside into your garden in the middle of August, thinking you did everything right. You enriched the soil, you spaced your crops carefully, you watered deeply and consistently. And somehow, you're still at the mercy of the weather, pests, and how fragile most of these plants actually are. Your tomatoes need constant support. Your cucumbers fall apart the moment humidity shifts. Everything feels like it needs babysitting. And then you discover a plant that doesn't just survive all of that, it thrives in it. A plant that can grow over 10 feet in a single season with barely any water. A plant where you can eat almost every part of it. And the real reason you don't hear about it? I'll get to that. But once you understand why this plant isn't everywhere, it might completely change how you see gardening.
Before we go deeper, if you're someone who actually wants to grow food that sustains you, not just pretty plants, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. This is Golden Root Living, and we talk about the plants and systems most people overlook, but probably shouldn't.
I'll be honest with you. When I first started looking into traditional food systems, I thought I already knew the important plants. Fruit trees, nitrogen fixers, companion planting, the basics. I figured if there was a plant so powerful people were calling it one of the most useful trees on Earth, I would have seen it by now. But I hadn't. And the way I discovered it wasn't even dramatic. I was just in the kitchen, washing dishes, completely ordinary day. And this thought just hit me. If a plant actually provided everything, nutrition, resilience, even water support, it wouldn't be sitting in a garden center, because you wouldn't need to keep buying things. So I stopped what I was doing, went to my laptop, and started digging.
The tree is called moringa. Sometimes it's known as the drumstick tree or the horseradish tree. And for centuries, it's been quietly grown across parts of Africa, India, and Southeast Asia. But here's the part that doesn't even sound real at first. Gram for gram, its leaves contain multiple times the nutrients of common foods people rely on. More vitamin C than oranges, more calcium than milk, more vitamin A than carrots. And unlike most plants, it contains all essential amino acids, which means it's a complete protein. If you've ever struggled trying to grow nutrient-dense food in your backyard, realizing this exists is honestly a relief, because it shows something important. Sometimes it's not you, it's the plants. We're trying to force delicate crops to survive in conditions they weren't built for. Heat spikes, irregular rain, poor soil. Most garden plants struggle. Moringa doesn't. When conditions get worse, it actually grows faster.
Here's why. Moringa is what's called a pioneer species. That means it's designed to grow in harsh, damaged environments where other plants can't survive. It develops a deep taproot that reaches water far below the surface. Its leaves are structured to reduce water loss while still capturing intense sunlight efficiently. So instead of shutting down in extreme heat, it leans into it.
Now, here's the obvious question. If it's this powerful, why isn't everyone growing it? Why isn't it in every garden, every nursery, every backyard? Before I answer that, I want you to think about this. Have you ever noticed how most food in stores is designed to last, not necessarily to nourish? Tomatoes that don't bruise, vegetables that stay fresh for weeks. That's not an accident. We've built a system around transport, not nutrition. And this is where moringa runs into a problem. Moringa leaves are extremely delicate once harvested. They don't sit on shelves. They don't travel well. Within hours, they begin to break down. So you can't ship them across long distances. You can't store them like supermarket vegetables. And that means they don't fit into the modern food system. Instead, what happens? They get dried, powdered, and sold as expensive supplements. But as a fresh, everyday food, they were left behind. Not because they're ineffective,
but because they're too effective without needing a system around them. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds great, but I don't live in a tropical climate. That's fair. I thought the same thing. For a long time, I assumed moringa just wasn't an option. But here's where things get interesting. You don't have to grow it as a tree. You grow it like an annual. Moringa grows incredibly fast, so fast that in one season, it can reach full size. You start seeds indoors a few weeks before your last frost, then transplant once the soil warms. Give it full sun, your hottest spot. The place where most plants struggle, that's where it performs best.
But there's one mistake people make early on: overwatering. Moringa doesn't like wet soil at all. It prefers well-draining conditions. Too much water will damage it faster than drought ever could. So think of it less like a vegetable and more like a survival plant. If you're in colder regions and want to keep it long-term, containers work. You can bring it indoors during winter, let it rest, and bring it back outside in warmer months. It takes effort, but it's possible. Now, here's where it becomes even more productive. There's a technique called coppicing. Once the plant reaches a certain height, you cut it back. Hard. And I know that sounds wrong, but that's exactly what triggers it to branch out and produce even more leaves. Instead of one tall plant, you get a dense, harvestable bush. More food, easier access. And this is the point where most people realize this isn't just another plant, it's a system. But what really made researchers pay attention to moringa wasn't even the food, it was the seeds.
Inside its pods are seeds that contain natural compounds capable of cleaning water. When crushed and mixed into contaminated water, they bind to dirt, bacteria, and particles, causing them to clump together and sink, leaving the water significantly clearer. Think about that for a second. One plant can help feed you, survive drought, and assist in water purification. If you're still watching at this point, I want to ask you something. Would you actually try growing something like this? Or does it sound too good to be true? Drop your answer in the comments. I read them and they shape what I create next. Now, when it comes to using moringa, most people cook it like leafy greens, and that works. But heat reduces some of its nutritional value. If you really want to preserve it, you dry it, but not in direct sunlight. That's the mistake. Sunlight breaks down key nutrients. Instead, you dry it in the shade, in a well-ventilated space. Once dried, you can turn it into powder and store it for months. And just like that, you've created something that lasts far beyond the growing season.
What fascinates me most about all of this isn't just the plant itself. It's what it represents. We spend so much time fighting nature, spraying, correcting, adjusting, trying to control everything. But traditional systems didn't work like that. They found plants that already fit the environment and worked with them. And maybe that's the shift we need. Not better tools, not more effort, just better choices. Because once you realize plants like this exist, you start asking a bigger question. What else are we overlooking? If this opened your eyes even a little, make sure you subscribe to Golden Root Living, because we're just getting started with uncovering these kinds of plants and systems. And before you go, tell me in the comments, have you ever grown something that completely changed how you see gardening? I genuinely like to know.
I'll see you in the next one.